Okay, guys, this week we're going to talk about something different. By request, I'm going to talk about how to fight multiple opponents. I'm also going to do a companion video about how to work as a team against a single opponent. I'll cover that in a separate video that I'll release. But we're going to start right now just talking about the scenario where you are facing one or multiple opponents. Okay? So, what are our options? What do you do? All right. So, is this one that stands out better? You've got two opponents facing you. You have several options that you can employ here. We'll talk about them in turn. The first one is run away. Okay? The opponents are approaching you, they outnumber you. If you engage them, this ends badly for you. You run away. It's that simple. Okay, it's the ultimate use of footwork. Now, there's a couple caveats here, and these are things that I've seen happen a lot in various combat scenarios. The first problem is you decide to run away, but one or both of your opponents is actually faster than you. If you run away from an opponent who can catch you, you've made the scenario infinitely worse for yourself, because now you're being struck from behind by somebody that you can't get away from. Okay? So you should only take off, you should only flee if you have the ability to get away from your opponent successfully. Now, because we're talking in a LARP context, this might also include abilities that you have that will slow one or more of your opponents. Okay? If you can successfully flee and stop one or both of your opponents from following you, it doesn't matter if you can outrun them or not, because you're effectively outrunning them, using your abilities. All right. And of course, if this opponent is faster than you and you disable them and you can still outrun this opponent, you're fine. Okay, good. Now, there's a couple scenarios though where this will not work. Okay, where running away is very clearly not an option. The first is the one that I just outlined, the inability to successfully run away, okay? The other scenario might be you've got an ally with you and you can successfully flee the area, but your ally is either stuck there or can't outstrip the opponents. And so if you leave, you're abandoning your ally, okay? Generally not a good idea, okay? So you can't flee the area. The other scenario is if you have to protect an object or an item, and so if you flee the area, your opponents will get it, access it, destroy it, whatever, okay? So you can't leave the area and abandon the object. Or, let's say instead of an object, this is a downed ally, and you're waiting for backup or waiting for rescue, and you've got to try to keep them from delivering a killing blow, okay? So, there are several scenarios where you're just not going to be able to exercise the ability to flee the area. All right, so what do you do? First thing to think about is, can you put yourself in an advantageous strategic position? The problem here, of course, that you face in facing multiple opponents is that you're dividing your attention for defense and also for offense, okay? But if you can find yourself in a area where you can limit their access. In other words, a closed front battle, we call it, where only one can attack at a time. Well, now you've changed the scenario where there are multiple opponents, but effectively you're making this a one-on-one battle. And if in this scenario you're comfortable with a one-on-one battle, then you only need to flee or relocate far enough to put yourself in that advantageous position. Now, something to think about here, though. Let's say this is a tavern, and you set yourself up inside the door, and you're using the door to create a limited front, a limited access front. However, the problem is the tavern has other doors, right? So this may work for a limited period of time, and maybe that's all you need. But long term, this might not work for you. Now, in addition to a scenario like a tavern, if nothing else, if all else fails, if you can, if you're in a wooded area, Okay, these dots are all trees, highly articulated trees. But you place yourself among and around trees so that there are other barriers, whether they're trees, hay bales, outbuildings, whatever you're talking about. If you can place yourself so that there is a tree between you and opponent, you're at least temporarily creating a limited front scenario. Now, of course, what's going to happen, this opponent will move around the obstruction, but you can then try to relocate to continue to have the obstruction between you and your opponent, okay? Or you can continue to retreat and position yourself behind another object, and again, continue to divide the opponents so that instead of facing multiple opponents, you're facing one at a time, okay? Now, let's say you don't have the opportunity to do any of this. When in doubt, if the opponents are coming in and you don't have the ability to successfully flee from them, and you don't have the ability to create a limited front engagement, then what you're going to end up doing is trying to artificially create one-on-one fights by using your footwork and movement. What do I mean by that? All right. Your opponents are advancing on you. If they're staying equidistant from you, then each has an opportunity to attack and defend equally as to you, their target. However, if, as your opponents are approaching, you take a step and now position yourself out of distance of this opponent, but in distance of this opponent, you're at least temporarily creating a one-on-one fight rather than a two-on-one fight. And as this opponent moves forward to try and obtain a better position, you can continue to move so that you're placing one of your opponents between the other opponent and you, okay? In other words, you're creating an obstruction by utilizing your opponent, okay? Now, that's very easily said, and it's not as easily done, because what'll happen is, this opponent comes forward, you move over, this opponent comes forward, this one will slide to the side to try and give them an opportunity to prevent you from utilizing them to interfere with your secondary opponent, okay? So oftentimes what you end up having is a scenario like this, and a worst case scenario is that, where you are sandwiched between the two opponents. In this scenario, if you have the ability to move, the worst thing you can do is stand still. So, and you can use this to your advantage to some degree. Your opponents move forward, they try to sandwich you. At this point, you can step forward, okay, and to the side. You're trying to create an artificial scenario where you're engaging one opponent at a time for even a brief period before the other one can re-engage with you, okay? A tactic that I often use if I'm in this scenario is I'll take a threatening step towards this opponent. They will generally step away. This opponent will rush, because when you turn and threaten this opponent, they feel like you're vulnerable. So you threaten this opponent, they step back or at least don't advance. This opponent will advance, and now you whirl and engage this opponent. So at least for a moment, the space of one or two swings, you have the ability to attack or defend against one opponent while the other one is out of distance, okay? Now, we're gonna work on all of these at the next game. So you don't have to worry about practicing too much, but the important thing is to understand the concept here. The concept is you do not want to let your opponents be an equal threat at all times. So if they've got the same distance from you, then they are maximizing their ability to attack you and minimizing your ability to defend. However, if you can create a scenario where where you're out of distance of one of your opponents while being able to engage the other opponent, at least temporarily, you're creating a better scenario for this fight. This is going to hold true even if you've got multiple opponents. In fact, in some ways, depending on the experience of your opponents, having more than two opponents attacking you can be very advantageous, because let's say you've got three opponents advancing on you, and let's say they're even doing it good enough that they're in a straight line to make sure that they're going to engage you at the same time. However, one or more of them, let's take this one on the left, is a little more of a novice and doesn't move a lot. You move over here, they will act as a blocker for you, and these two have to move around them, and they have to do so with alacrity, okay? So as the opponents are moving forward, you can feign towards one and then break the other way, or just, move that way. You can also just, as they're advancing, just kind of sidestep. And again, notice how far this opponent is from you compared to this opponent and even this opponent. So again, the takeaway from this, assuming you don't have the ability to create a limited front engagement or to artificially use the terrain to your advantage, is you're going to have to maximize your movement to create scenarios where, at least momentarily, it's no longer a multiple opponent scenario for you. It's a one-on-one fight. That's what you're looking for, is to create a one-on-one fight and ideally whittle your opponents down over time, or at least survive until someone else comes in to assist you, okay? And at that point, now the scenario has changed, okay? So let me know if you have any questions about that. We will drill this at an upcoming game so that everyone can experience this. As I said in my first training video on Discord here, the thing to remember is, without training this, without actually putting it to the test and doing it in action, you cannot reasonably expect that it's going to work for you when you need it to. So you need to drill, you need to practice this, and we'll do that at the upcoming event. Again, any questions, let me know. Thanks.